Excellent. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Oh my God, that was a fantastic presentation. James and Hannah, thank you so much for that. And it's just going to continue and go on. So my name is Jenny Pierce, and I am one of the co-chairs of the working group. And so for this next part of the program later this morning, we'll have 3 case studies that will highlight some fantastic community science projects that the workshop organizing committee that we knew about. I know there's a lot out there. We don't mean to leave anybody out or anything, but as an example, these are awesome. There should be time for questions and discussions after each presentation, especially if I stop talking quickly. So I'm going to introduce, first off, we are going to start with the Magnetawan First Nation Department of Lands, Resources and Environments, represented by Alanna Smolaras. And so I am going to turn it over to Alanna. Thank you so much for being here and participating, Alanna.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. Hope everybody can see that. Yes, no, maybe so. Got a thumbs up. All right, perfect.
It looks good.
All right, so to follow up to James's presentation, my goodness, this is going to be difficult, but I just want to appreciate and share my incredible thanks for being here and for having the opportunity to listen to James. I wasn't entirely sure what to kind of present on, so there is a little bit of overlap on my perspectives of community science as well as our Massasauga project, but I only have 15 minutes, so I'm going to blaze through it as fast as I can, but I'm so glad that James had the opportunity to share his experiences at Magnetawan, which is where I get to work now. So anyway, to backtrack a little bit, Ani Bojo, Alanna Smolaras and Deshnakaz, Brantford and Donjaba, Kalan, Perry Sound, Indao, Nindano Ki, Magnetawan First Nation. So my name is Alanna Smolaras. I'm originally from Brantford, Ontario, but I live in Perry Sound on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850. So like I was saying, although this workshop is geared around community science and the Massasauga rattlesnake, I really do hope that we can all take this back and share with our colleagues and across all disciplines of science, this idea of community science. I know this is being biologists, a lot of our work is outdoors and based on the land, but community science really is just across the board. This can be applicable to all facets of research and understanding. So I hope that we all carry this forward. I also want to just say that I appreciated the acknowledgement of this is a safe space of learning and of sharing. And all of the perspectives that I share today are my own and what I've had the honor and privilege of learning over the last few years of working at Magnetawan and before that. So with all that being said, I will get into it. So Chimigwech for having me. So for those of you that don't know, Magnetawan First Nation is located on the eastern shores of Georgian Bay, Minnedogamie. So in my introduction, I butchered it, but the actual pronunciation of Magnetawan is Namegnetawan. That was also originally shared by Elder Wilmer Naganash, which describes the place of sturgeon. So that's a whole other discussion. But anyway, so the Magnetawan River runs through the nation. It's the lifeblood of the land, and it hosts a suite of habitats that are conducive to an incredible biodiversity of reptiles, species at risk, mammals, all those incredible things. So we're very fortunate to be living and working in this area. So what we're here for is these people right here. This is just a few of what we consider our community. So not only the community members, but past staff, colleagues, friends, all of these people, and these are just a few of them, have contributed to this incredible program and our idea of what community means, whether it's our community at Magnetawan, this community of Massasauga lovers, this community, our department. And anyway, we always like to acknowledge the community of Magnetawan First Nation, and those of you who've been lucky enough to interact with some of these members. It's an incredible group of people. So over the last 10 years, our speech service program has developed, but this community has been here doing this work long before that. So just a chimigwech to them. So at Magnetawan, our purpose really is about empowering our community and empowering the land. So we prioritize community values to guide the management of the land with a two-eyed seeing approach. So I'm not going to go too much into this two-eyed seeing approach. I do have a follow-up slide to this, but I really do hope that people will take an opportunity to further their understanding of that concept beyond this workshop as well. We also try and create a safe and respectful space to share traditional knowledge. We have an open door policy. It also includes dogs. We have a dog in our community that knows how to open our door now, so he comes and joins quite often. He really takes advantage of that open door policy. And we advocate for Indigenous and community science to direct planning, research, and management. We also try and build capacity, identify risks to our community, to the lands and resources that are vulnerable to change, whether that be climate change, development, threats, obviously roads being a big one as well. So I said that I would touch a little bit on this two-eyed seeing approach, which is something that we try and incorporate into our programming. And I'm not going to read these quotes, but again, I've included the links, and Hannah will hopefully share the PDF to that Google Drive after. But it's this idea of using two lenses to approach research, to approach science. One is not more valuable than the other, and to have that understanding, that openness, you have to have kind of those two perspectives, which becomes an extremely strong and powerful thing. And over the last, I'd say short time, it really has been about recognizing the value of Indigenous science and recognizing that it has equal value to our Western science approaches, which so many of us are familiar with. And it's finally catching up to Indigenous knowledges. And I think it's important to understand as well that traditional knowledge, Indigenous knowledge, it is an extremely valuable thing. And something that I really appreciate and respect about this idea of community science is I think a lot of people get nervous about, collecting TEK in a good way and using TEK, which isn't the right, it's not used anyway. But it's about the community science side of things is about that first step to potentially accessing that Indigenous knowledge, to building that trust, to understanding those values, because traditional knowledge, TEK, Indigenous knowledge, all of that is extremely valuable and should be treated as such. And the idea of two-eyed seeing was initially introduced by Elder Albert Marshall from the Mi'kmaq Nation. And I, again, encourage you to further your understanding if you're not too aware of two-eyed seeing. So just to kind of share some other resources, which is how I kind of took this presentation. Again, I'm sorry, I will talk about Massasaugas in a second. Funnily enough, I also stumbled across the paper that James initially shared, but these are some of the ones that I have used to further my understanding that I'm reading, both my understanding of community science, Indigenous knowledges, even just some of the things surrounding like understanding the impact of words and of language. So the word conservation has been mentioned a lot. That webinar that I have listed there from the Swift Foundation, it's an incredible sharing of perspectives on even just the word conservation and how that, what that means to different individuals and different communities. So I encourage you to check that out. And the one that has totally blown my mind that I stumbled across late last year was I have it in front of me, Indawewin and Relational Accountability in Anishinaabe Studies by Nicholas Rio. And for those who don't know about ethnobiology and what that means, again, only have 15 minutes, so further your understanding. I know James discussed this about the relationships that you have both with community and the relationships you have with the land. they're important to understand. And this principle of relational accountability has helped me further my understanding. And I'll just read you a quick quote from the paper, but it's our way of relating to each other and to all of creation. It's an all-inclusive relationship that honors interconnectedness of all our relations and recognizes and honors the human place and responsibility within the family of creation. So that responsibility as humans, we're all treaty people, we're all part of the land. We have that responsibility as well. So it's important to recognize that. Oh, 15 minutes is going by real fast. So another quote that I hope it's coming across that I just have I'm honored to be here and I'm honored to be sharing this. And I feel a lot in my heart right now and I hope it's coming across. And if I don't get to cover all of this, if I get cut off, that's totally fine. And the reason that I talk about my heart is because Indigenous people are very scientific, but it's just that their science includes heart, which is why I want to share this quote, which I originally saw on Facebook by a friend of mine, Amber Sandy, who shared it. So I just think it's such an incredible, encompassing idea that it's science, but it's science with heart. So, like the paper James said, maybe I don't need to go into this, but it's an incredible starting point for your understanding of community science. I swear I didn't know that he was going to share that. So this is just repetitive, but it's good because it's an incredible paper. More specifically, it just touches on how citizen science is typically instituted, not by a community, but by a researcher or team of researchers outside the community. Whereas community science is led by the community, which chooses whether or not to engage with any given scientific experts, whether internal or external. So that's just in like the introduction, and it gives an idea of how impactful that paper is. So at Magnetawan, our perspective of community science is about creating learning opportunities for community members of every age to participate, learn, and connect with the land. Pass knowledge and technical skills to youth by supporting employment opportunities. We always try and hire as many kids as we can in the summers, which is awesome. We also ensure that there's time to connect with community and foster positive relationships with all relations. Like I said, Indigenous people have this connectedness to the land, to the water, to the animals, and all their relations. They all have a spirit. And also finding innovative ways to reflect on the values and priorities of the community is something that we try and incorporate. Keep it going. The Speech at Risk program, specifically at Magnetawan First Nation, started as a result of community observations and concerns. And I'm so glad that James continues to think fondly of his time at Magnetawan, because boy, oh boy, does the community never stop talking about their time at Magnetawan. So I just think it's an incredible example of community science done right and done in a way that is truly meaningful. So it started, like I said, as a result of community concerns and observations about road mortality, and it has continued to this day. So the road ecology work they did, the mitigations, the population monitoring, both for the Meshikan and the turtles and the Ganebig, which are the snakes, has continued, and it's been a longstanding program over the last 10 years. Also, not to age myself too much, I've only been there for 4 years, but it's incredible. So, like I said, we've continued this program. We have an incredible database of the Massasaugas, some of their critical habitats, and an understanding of their critical habitats in this very unique landscape. It's pretty incredible as well to see some of the youth and our staff interacting with these individuals. And it's always exciting when we go back to a critical habitat and find the same individual from last year. There's that same sense of family, like, oh, hey, how did you have a good winter? Nice, all that good stuff. It really solidifies that that connection. So it's pretty amazing. But like kind of all of our programs have really become all-encompassing, this understanding of that connectedness and everything is connected. We encourage that in all aspects of our outreach and education to really help assist individuals reconnect with the land, the water, and the species, obviously using the Massasauga as an example of destigmatizing the colonial fear around snakes. That fear was not an initial response to individuals. There's quite a beautiful history of Massasaugas in the Indigenous culture that I've come to learn, which I'll share a little bit with you. So just to kind of the initial discussion around just the name of the Massasauga in Anishinaabe language. So there's two kind of dialects, and we just put out a coloring book that we made. Just going to pitch that real quick. There were some members of our community, Nadine Perron, Samantha Naganash, Autumn Smith, they shared their knowledges and understanding of the language. So the northern dialect or name of the Massasauga is Medwehi, which means sounder. And then the one that we commonly use is Jishigwe. I was taught that the Jishi, that sound at the beginning of the name is meant to sound like the rattle. So there's a really beautiful kind of idea behind how even the language and the names of these animals and individuals contribute to an understanding of them as a spirit, as an individual, as a descriptive way of defining that individual. I think it's a beautiful thing. And so even just starting with the language, starting with the words that you use to name these snakes and these individuals is, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So also in Indigenous culture, I've come to learn that the Massasauga, the Shishigwe, is a medicine keeper. It's a healer and it's a protector. The shedding of its skin also represents a new life and a new beginning. And as James mentioned, Wilmer Naganash is one of the others in our community who unfortunately passed away recently. But he shared so much knowledge and elders from Shawanaga First Nation. So you'll be hearing from Steve after me about, yeah, his community. There's an elder, Sam, I'm not going to pronounce his last name. I'm so sorry. Really bad. He shared the original teachings of how the Massasauga is known as a medicine keeper, the story of how during blueberry season it hides in the bushes and it ensures that you're not taking more than you're supposed to. You're leaving some of that medicine for the other animals. But I've also had the fortunate honor of learning from Elder Richard Asinawe, who's the head elder for Anishinaabe Nation, who shared a lot of this information with me as well, thanks to connection made by Richard Naganash. And yeah, it's really contributed to my understanding and why I chose to share it here. So I hope it's everybody's learned something about the Shishigwe. One of the things that's also been expressed by several elders, not only in our nation, but across nations, is the importance of empowering youth and getting them involved. So it's something that we try and emphasize in our work. And like I said, using this, I feel like the stigma and the fear of rattlesnakes, kids don't have that unless their parents instill it in them, but kids just are curious and they want to learn. And a lot of the youth that I've interacted with are as obsessed with Massasaugas as I am. And it's pretty incredible. So fostering that love and understanding is really what this is about, and something we've tried to do more of with this. We call it traveling biologists, but we take some of the youth and do exchanges with other communities across Turtle Island in Ontario, which has been really amazing. And this is what it's about. This is what it's, yeah, why it's important. So once again, just showcasing some of the incredible things that we do and the kids we get to work with and the opportunities we take to share with the community and to also hear from the community. Yeah, I just like showing pictures. So bringing it all together, I'm sure I'm well past 15 minutes, but the idea of that two-eyed seeing approach, you've got the Western science and Indigenous science perspective, and then there's this community science that we've been talking about. And I just want to thank James again for, we were kind of maybe without knowing, like he said, we were doing it, but when he expressed this, I was able to see his presentation at the CHS and kind of, again, further my understanding of community science and what we've come to know it as. It is part of this two-eyed seeing approach in its own way that isn't as overwhelming as trying to understand Indigenous science, because sometimes we're not meant to understand everything. We're not meant to know everything all at once, but at least this community science can be used as hopefully what people feel a stepping stone to working in and with community. Yeah, it's equally as important, but it's still part of that way of seeing and way of interacting. Chimigwech once again, and Chimigwech to all of you for listening. Hopefully I didn't blabber too much and it made a little bit of sense. And yeah, Chimigwech.
Thank you so much, Alanna. That was absolutely fantastic. And I love the pictures. That just was awesome. And that was a gigantic rattlesnake in one of those shots. That was amazing. Yeah, so I think what we'll do, you actually kept right to 20 minutes. So if you do have any questions for Alanna, I'm going to ask that if you could put them in the chat for now, and we'll move on to the next presentation, just to sort of try and keep it in time. And then if we have time at the end, we'll just open it up for questions for any of the 3 case study presentations that we're doing. So we'll move right on. If Stephen, if you are good to go. So we have Stephen Kell from Shawanaga First Nation Species at Risk to talk to us, and I'll just shut up so we don't take any time. And the screen sharing's working. Everything's going so well.
How's that, everyone? That all look good for everyone?
Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for all for having me. Wonderful job, Alanna. Another great presentation to try to follow up to. There will be a lot of overlap with this presentation. I took this as an opportunity just to really share about some of the rattlesnake work that we're doing in our community. And a lot of this work too is it's modeled off other communities, and like seeing the presentation that Alanna just gave, we really look up to that community and all the work that they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time. They do really great work. And we've only been doing it for a very short time, but we're trying to strive towards doing something similar and having similar great work within our community. And I think we're slowly getting there. The community is really getting on board with some of the stuff that we're doing. And yeah, it's just super rewarding to work in a community that loves species as much as you do. So yeah, without further ado, figure out how to move my slides. Here we go. Yeah, so Shawanaga, we have a lot of different projects, a lot of different amazing species at risk, as well as other species, cultural species. And I'm just going to talk about the one that we're sort of here today to talk about, which is the Massasauga rattlesnake. And I know Alanna covered this. She covered it well, but sort of the way we try to do our projects at Shawanaga is always trying to weave knowledge systems. So we're always trying to, there's a couple different ways you can sort of say this, weaving or braiding knowledge systems, two-eyed seeing, sort of combining that indigenous knowledge with that Western science. And the way we like to also do it is try to create a project that's very community driven. We have all the government statements of sort of what needs to be recovered, what's declining, but really trying to have the community back those projects and also have the projects come from the concerns of the community. And this is not always an easy thing to do. These knowledge systems are both similar, but also different, but they can greatly complement each other when used together. And yeah, it's really powerful when you can use them together. But like I said, it's not always something that can come naturally, especially when you have, for example, myself coming from a Western science background, trying to learn a different knowledge system that I'm not familiar with is definitely a journey and a process. And sort of, I won't read this quote as well, but taking that generational knowledge, decades of knowledge from being out on the land, observing nature, all that cultural knowledge, and having that transfer through generations, and then being able to try to incorporate it into a project, not just using it, but having it actually incorporated and lead the project. And yeah, this isn't an easy thing to do. but really where to start is really building that relationship off the bat, talking to people, listening to the stories they have, listening to the concerns they have. There's not one way to do this, not one rule to doing it. Every community is different, every project's different. And so trying to take a very situational approach to it, listening to that community, seeing how they want to proceed and doing it and including that knowledge, and definitely never something that should be forced. So just a little example for you here. Snakes are, as we all know, not a species that always has positive sort of perspective with it. And so there's another challenge with sort of creating a project with snakes, because they're not always looked upon positively. So here's just a project in Shawanaga. Just for example, moose, a very cultural species, very important to the community. And every year at Shawanaga, we have a youth hunt. This has been going on for many years now. And it's just something it's just so backed by the community. There's so much love for the species. There's so much culture to that species. And you can see here with this group of youth, every year, the youth are just so excited, like they're looking forward to it. Even after the week has passed, they're already looking forward to next year's youth hunt, and getting out there, learning from the elders, being back on the land. And so this is something that we're trying to strive to get with snakes. Another example of including this knowledge, lake sturgeon. Within the Western science world, for Eastern Georgian Bay, that is, there's a lot of missing gaps. So we try to take a project approach where to help sort of figure out more about what the lake sturgeon's, what's happening. We sort of went to each community and tried to base the whole project sort of guided in that traditional knowledge. So speaking with community members from along the entire coast, sort of hearing where historically they might have seen sturgeon, different stories that they had, and then letting that guide the whole project, and eventually coming out with a management plan, all guided using that traditional knowledge. And so the project that we have, or the way we sort of try to do things, is we have this the traditional knowledge weaving in with the Western science, and then we have the citizen science, or community science, and it sort of all wraps together in this circle, the whole approach coming together in a whole community project. And so when we try to bring that together with rattlesnakes, you can sort of see all the bits and pieces, how they start to overlap. The Western science, we always have that field work, mark recaptures, field surveys. The traditional knowledge, we have all those stories, integrating the language, different timings from being out on the land, interacting with the community, and then we have that sort of community citizen science approach. Now, outreach is super important. As I said, I'm a Western scientist coming into a community not familiar with the traditional knowledge side of things. And so it's been a huge journey for myself. I've also only been at Shawanaga for 4 years. And I feel like every day my mind's just blown. I'm like, I thought I know so much, and then you realize that you don't really know anything. So always sharing both sides of things, sharing those knowledge systems, and learning from each other. And trying to learn from each other as much as possible, but also trying to change perspective. So when I first came to Shawanaga, I would hear stories of human persecution, not all the time, but there was occasions here and there. Since this project has started, I haven't heard of one recent case. So perspectives have been changed, and the community, the snakes are not always regarded in a good way. But as we start to talk with each other, that those perspectives have changed. So we have a whole variety of field work, mark recapture, getting out and just seeing where these snakes are on the land. Yeah, and doing a whole bunch of different cool work with the snakes. Being able to interact with them in a safe way is super awesome. And then being able to share that work with the community. And a huge part of that is being able to share that work with community members, especially the youth. So we've been able to have a whole bunch of youth from the community work with us, and just seeing the change, how they see the species. You can see in some of these photos, just like the care and stewardship over these species that they have by the end of summer. Being able to get out there and work with them is just so rewarding, and they're going to take that as they grow up with them. But just, yeah, trying to get out there with the youth, with everyone in the community, super rewarding. So yeah, so trying to, where some of this data is going. So trying to work with, trying to see what the snakes are doing, where they're going on the landscape. There's a really good example I like to share. So we just have like some rough maps here, but with some different habitat gestation sites and hibernation sites. But I was like, oh, I want to do road surveys. I want to figure out where the snakes are going, where they're crossing. Like, oh, we should go out there and survey the roads every day and everything. And an elder was just like, I can tell you where they cross. Told me where they cross. And I was like, oh, miigwech, like, thank you for telling me that. Yeah, it's one of these hot spots. I was like, I should have just listened and just, yeah, valued that information. Basically my first week of working at Shawanaga, just so valuable. The community members, they've been out there, they've observed these animals for so long. They have such invaluable knowledge, and just sort of being naive to that data beforehand in my journey. And then, yeah, so yeah, we have a whole bunch of data. I'm just gonna skip over this so that we don't look at that. But basically, yeah, we've been able to collect a lot of knowledge, a lot of data, partly through fieldwork, but through a lot of community observation as well. So we don't have iNaturalist set up in the community, but we do have basically our phone numbers given to community members. So if they see a snake on the road while they're going out, like we do like systematic road surveys every once in a while, but more frequently is community members traveling around on the roadways, going down to the landing, going down to the bay, going fishing. And so they're coming across these individuals a lot more than we are. And so they can snap a photo, send it to us. And then, and we're trying to find a balance between sort of reporting up to a program like iNaturalist versus actually having that sort of genuine interaction with a community member, sending you a photo, being able to say like, thank you, or talk about that photo at that time. And it's still all being collected. Yeah, so we're trying to find a balance with that, but we have a lot of reports sent to us from community members just from being out on land all the time. And so bringing it back to sort of that cultural role, Alanna touched on this a bit, but the role of the medicine protector, I'm not going to go into the story in too much detail, but roughly we have the 4 sacred berries, really important medicines, and the rattlesnake is a protector of those medicines. And when it's rattling, it's saying, okay, you've collected enough. Go share that with your community, share that with your family and your friends. And it's teaching us this sustainable, this rule of sustainability, resource sharing, and protection. And it just makes that connection with the animal so much stronger. You get it when you get out and you see the individual, work with it, have it hands-on, but having that cultural connection with it also makes it a lot more stronger as well. So we try to do a couple different community events throughout the summer. I just recently named this one. This is what I wish we called this at the time, but Mothers Rock, because mothers do rock. Yeah, yeah, we hosted this last summer where we basically monitored a whole bunch of gestation sites for a couple of weeks, and we knew basically the exact day when they were all going to give birth. We were able to take a couple of community members out there. We did a berry ceremony beforehand, and then go out there and actually view a bunch of basically freshly birthed neonates. So really cool interaction for community members to get to see, and just being able to experience that and actually see like a mother with her babies, just sitting at a rock and yeah, knowing like, okay, yeah, like not scary at all. It's just sitting there with her babies. Another one that we've had, and it's been great to see too with this medicine walk. So we run this in the fall, is going out to one of our big hibernation sites, and we look for rattlesnakes that are going into hibernation in the hummocks. Take a whole bunch of community members, and then while we're out there, we also just talk about the snakes and talk about the medicines and collect medicines as we go. So different cranberries that are out there, Labrador tea, and just sort of connect the medicines with the species and the habitat. And like this one, for example, the first year we tried to run it, I remember a bunch of people were like, oh, like, why would we want to, like, yeah, I want to go for the medicines, but I don't really want to go see snakes. And then this year we ran it and people were like, oh, like, just really wanted to come out and see it, and just had a really good time. Yeah, so we had a little film that came out a couple years ago. I think it might have been during first year of COVID or something. We had this little video come out, so just sort of trying to incorporate a bit of that language into it, a bit of natural history, and just trying to sort of show the snake just sort of doing its thing. Yeah, they're beautiful creatures, and then also talking a little bit about sort of the climate change aspect of it. So we had that video come out, and then what this led to recently, which is just sort of lucky and but really cool, was that film ended up getting sort of picked up by a different series. So this came out just this winter, a Great Lakes Untamed TVO series featuring the rattlesnake. So yeah, so it's just really cool to be able to see the snake that we love so much sort of on television, getting like hundreds of thousands of views. They didn't integrate any of that sort of cultural knowledge or really conservation stories behind it. They went for, of course, like a feeding scene or something like that. But it's still really cool just to see our rattlesnake featured, and so many people actually getting to see that in TV. And so yeah, trying to bring this all together, trying to bring all that knowledge, all those different systems together. I try to look at it as connecting it. And some of you may have heard the example. So in the spring, especially at Shawanaga, Shawanaga loves walleye. We have a walleye hatchery, but to know when the walleye are spawning and when it's ready to go down to the river to harvest some of that resource, they listen for the spring peepers. When the spring peepers are calling, the water temperatures are roughly at the same temperature that the walleye are spawning. And so looking at those traditional timing windows, that cultural knowledge that's been passed down, and then also being able to, as a community, start to generate our own timing windows. So we've started to try to generate this for snakes as well. So in Shawanaga bases the deer hunt off the tamaracks. So when the tamaracks change colors, that means that it's okay to start hunting deer. But when the tamaracks change colors, we've also noticed that all the rattlesnakes are fully underground. They're fully in their hummocks. And a lot of this correlates with some of the first major frosts. So trying to connect all that knowledge together and looking at those traditional timing windows, I find it fascinating. So I think, yeah, that's all I have, Miigwech. Thanks for listening.
Oh, Stephen, that was absolutely fantastic. I know when we're, working with species at risk, there's, that's often there's depressing stories and everything, but just pointing out how the community is just grasped the importance and really coming around. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with some of the work that you've done. So yes, that is fantastic. Thank you very much. I think we'll do the same thing with questions. If you do have any questions for Stephen, you can put them in the chat. And otherwise, just we're already 5 minutes behind. We're staying with our 5 minutes, so that's good. So I am going to directly pass it on to Kenton. Thank you so much, and I'll just let you take it away.
Okay, and hopefully you can hear me all right. Okay, and we'll guess the cause no bell and donjaba no kian. I live in Nobel, Killbear Provincial Park, also known as Bear Point. And
sorry, Kenton, sorry to interrupt you. You're really cutting out for me. Is that the same for other people?
I'll stop my video. How's that?
Better so far.
Okay, sorry. We'll start. So I work at Killbear, and what I'm going to do is give you an overview of what Killbear has done over the last 30 years involving community science to basically solve the problem of what happens when you plunk a really busy provincial park on top of really good rattlesnake habitat. And so the problem basically was when the park was created in 1960. It was previous to that, there were no roads on the peninsula that became the park. So it was really great habitat. But first thing that happened when the park showed up was people were scared of rattlesnakes, and so they killed them. And the park staff's job for the first 10 years from 1960 to 1970 was to kill all rattlesnakes. So obviously a major problem. By the 70s, they realized that they shouldn't be killing them, and they started to just move them if they ended up on a campsite or on a road. And this is still a problem that happens today. They end up on campsites and roads. Back in the 70s and 80s, they would move them likely too far, and then they were accidentally killing them because later on in the late fall, they would not know where their hibernation spot was. So it was really only in 1992 when we stopped moving them long distances, the park really started to protect the animals. So this is where we get into what we've been doing and how some of the community science and participation has been very instrumental. So education has been a major piece of what we've been doing all along, as Stephen and Alanna also talked about. So to be clear, that's a fox snake that Eugenie is showing these kids. But we daily snake talks. We have a display at the a couple displays about snakes at the Discovery Center, including the one on the right. This is the with Sam Kwakato, the teaching from that he gave us all that Alanna and Stephen just talked about, and so the rattlesnake pipe and the teaching about it being a medicine protector. And so that's been an integral part of the education that we and communication that we do. And so it's all about trying to dispel fears, get rid of all the myths that are out there, and get people more comfortable with the thought that rattlesnakes are okay to live with. And so we do all kinds of things like school groups and going out to community events and cottage associations and nature clubs. I teach everybody I can on how to handle rattlesnakes safely, how to catch them with a broom and a garbage bin tipped over on its side, basically. Because living around here, people deal with rattlesnakes. And the more people that know how to safely catch and relocate a rattlesnake, if you find it on your back deck or on the path from your place down to the water, the better, because 30 years ago, those incidents would have ended up in the snake dying. But now we've been really working. We have this critical mass along Georgian Bay, you can tell, of people working on this, and it is definitely working. So we also moved down to social media. We've got blog articles, and Killbear has a Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and so we're publicize what we do and about the rattlesnakes and all of those avenues. And how it works with the public is we have basically we've trained all of our park visitors and our staff and all of our park neighbors to let us know when they see a rattlesnake in the park, on the road or on their campsite, and staff respond as quickly as possible and will bag them up. And it makes for a great educational opportunity to talk to folks. And then we take those snakes back, we process them, all the data goes into our database. But the people that first find the snake, they get to name the snake. And they will come back to us years later and go, oh, have you seen so-and-so recently? And so that's a way of getting people to be involved and engaged. And this has also been very, very vital for us. The Please Break for Snake signs, which were first created in the late 90s and in conjunction with the Toronto Zoo. And so these are up in numerous places now. They unfortunately don't necessarily do a whole lot for actually preventing road mortality, but they do a great job for awareness. And the Friends of Killbear have made a ton of money off of these shirts, which they have then put back into snake protection and research projects and things like that. And it's just built a whole community of people that are supportive of rattlesnake research. And that's what it's all about, is getting the community involved. And so to continue on, just what we've been finishing off with the problem, fixing the problem, is we've installed 4 kilometers of snake fences, exclusion fences along the roads. We put in 4 eco passages. We're working with the Georgian Bay Biosphere and with money from Henvey Inlet, the wind farm project, to actually put in a 5th eco passage at Killbear. And we had a master's level research out of Jackie Liskas's lab at Laurentian, a gentleman by the name of Mike Colley, who did the research on those snake fences and eco passages and to prove that they are working. And so in a nutshell, it's a long-term campaign of education, monitoring and research, mitigation efforts. The Friends of Killbear have been very involved. They're kind of the organized group that is involved in this, but the general public and the visitors are very vital too. And I just want to do a shout out to Chris Parent, the gentleman on the left, who started all this back in 1992 and led this project for the first 10 years. And Mike Colley was the gentleman that did the research into the snake fence and exclusion. And I'm done.
Wow, that is super awesome. I did have a question. So when the visitors get to name the rattlesnake, how many rattlesnakes do you have that have like 8 names now? And sort that out.
So yeah, we tell them that they're only able to name it if it's the first time that the snake is caught, and so yeah, because otherwise it could get very confusing.
Yeah, and the naming thing, I know it is wonderful when we use our snakes in the education programs, and somebody will be like, "Oh, is this?" and they have a name, and we're like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
But oh, that awesome stories. And I mean, it's nice to see that it's definitely heading in a more positive direction. So that is that's a fantastic thing. Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Ken, for that presentation and being so quick there. So if anybody has any questions, Alanna and Stephen and Kenton are still with us here. So feel free if you want to put your hand up in the reactions there, if anybody has any questions for any of them, which they were all absolutely fantastic presentations. Again, thank you so much.
There are a couple of questions in the chat.
Excellent.
One was, what distance away do you recommend people relocate a rattlesnake?
So we don't move our snakes any more than about 300 meters. And that's to basically keep them within their range. If you move them too much farther than that, there's a danger if you put them outside of their home range, and then they don't know where they are, and then they don't know where their hibernation spot is. We have the benefit at Killbear of all the years of research, so we actually know the ranges of our snakes, and so. But yeah, that's what we generally do is about 300 meters. Try not to go any farther than that.
That's excellent. And if you know the range, can you actually move them 300 meters deeper into their range if you actually know the individual you're dealing with?
Yeah, so what we're usually doing is moving them away from the roads, and the main road is the kind of a boundary between two different populations. So essentially it is moving them deeper into their safer part of their range. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Is there another one you have, Hannah?
Yeah, there's another in the chat from Curtis. The local conservation area near me has very high snake and amphibian mortality. Aside from collecting data, do you have any suggestions on how to encourage them to implement mitigation measures? I've asked them multiple times to close the gate during spring and fall migration events.
That might be a Kenton question again.
Yeah, maybe it's an excellent idea, and that is the kind of thing that some areas do. Like I know at Rondo, they close down some of their roads in the park at certain times of year to prevent road mortality, and so you would think that the local conservation area should be on board with that. Maybe they're like, I would think that they would need some evidence, and so collecting the data is important. But if you already know that it's happening, then yeah, it's a matter of building support and talking to the biologist and explain the problem, and then hopefully they start doing their job.
I would also say that support from the community, if there's community concern in the area of mortality, if you can get some kind of concern expressed that way, that it's not just in the best interest of the snakes, but it's in the best interest of the community because they're concerned about it. If you're concerned about it, there's probably somebody else out there that would also like to express that.
Excellent. All right. Was there another one there, Hannah?
Yeah, there's another one. Well, from one of the Hannah McCurdy Adams. So I'm not sure who this is from, but what methods do you use to keep track of individuals? I know turtles get notched, but is there a way to mark snakes?
Do you want to take that one as well, Kenton?
Sure, yeah. So we use microchips. So it's the same microchip that dogs and cats get identified with. You can also take photos, and because each snake, the blotch pattern of a rattlesnake is slightly different. And so you can use, depending on how many snakes you have, you can use the blotch patterns, but the more snakes you get, that can get you're comparing a lot of photos. So that's why we go with the microchips too.
That's excellent. All right.